It is silly season right now for Canadian soccer fans, and we get to spend the rest of the summer taking a look at some transfer rumors. And there's actually some big transfers that have already happened with Ismail Kone and now Derek Cornelius signing with Marseille. So what we are going to do today, Alex and I will take a look at 5 players that have been linked to clubs, some big clubs around Europe right now, and we're going to give you our opinions on them. So Alex, first things first, let's take a look at the very first player on our list today, which is Stefan Eustaquio. Now, Jesse Marsh talked about how it's fantastic that a player like Stefan Eustaquio, one of Canada's most important players, is playing at a big club like Porto. But at the end of the day, especially after seeing how Canada did at Copa America with 13 MLS players, he wants his players to play. So do you think there's any chance, knowing that the core players in that midfield are still there for Porto, there might be a chance that Eustaquio leaves?
Yeah, I think you can only wonder because, of course, there's a new coach coming in, so it's a fresh start. But it's worth noting that the new head coach, Vitor Bruno, is a long-time assistant of Sergio Conceição, and he's spent 7 years at Porto. He's not a new face, and you look, there's no doubt that Nico Gonzalez and Alan Varela are the heartbeat of this Porto midfield, and there's a role for Eustaquio to play. But unless Porto changes things and plays with 3 midfielders, and I can't imagine they shift too far into that, Eustaquio might be offered a bit more of a rotational role. So you can only wonder if it might be better for him to seek another move, perhaps within Portugal itself for familiarity, or if there's an opportunity. Of course, there's been links to MLS, which offers interesting positives and negatives. And then, of course, you can only wonder if maybe a team somewhere else in the top 5 league might have seen Eustaquio's past success at Porto and wonder if he could do a job in their midfield.
So we did a little research here, and Alex, we came up with some clubs. Now, I've mentioned Braga for a long time. I mentioned Braga before he actually moved to Porto because I thought that might have been a more realistic jump, but Eustaquio made the big move up to Porto. And if you're going to leave Porto, I don't think you're going to Sporting or Benfica. So really staying at a top level in Portugal, Braga is the only option, and I really wouldn't mind it. Also one of the most beautiful stadiums in the world, by the way. If we're looking at MLS, I had to throw in TFC. I don't know if you like that look. I don't really want to see him go back to MLS right now. I think that there's still a spot for him. But honestly, what might interest me the most is going to La Liga. Now, Spain and Portugal are right beside each other. He doesn't have to leave and go too far from his family. I don't know where he would potentially land, but I thought maybe a team like Celta Vigo could work. A little connection there. Luca de la Torre is a CONCACAF player that's made his way over there. I think that Celta Vigo over the past few seasons have struggled quite a bit, despite having a squad that should probably push for about a mid-table finish. So out of those 3, anyone interest you?
Yeah, I think could be interesting to see what a Celta Vigo looks like. See what Eustaquio could bring outside of a Portuguese environment, just because he spent so much time, within that league. Of course, he came through. Before he went and had that stint in Cruz Azul, he came through Portugal, and then of course he went and transferred back. And then he made the move to Porto, of course. So like Eustaquio's been at multiple clubs within Portugal. It'd be interesting to see what he could do in the Liga with his style, with his play, where he could fit. And hey, Celta Vigo has taken a punt on CONCACAF players in the past. Of course, Luca de la Torre, the American midfielder, one of those names. You can't help but wonder for Eustaquio, because of course he's got a lot to weigh, in the sense that he recently had a kid, a lot to consider about his future. For what it's worth, a move to Spain is a lot less disruptive than a move across the pond to Canada, to Toronto. So definitely for Eustaquio, you do wonder if, especially if Gonzalez and Varela stick around, that if a fresh start close to Portugal could make sense.
Yeah, one of those 2 would probably be good for me. I doubt he's gonna, and I hope he doesn't go to MLS, but we'll have to wait and see. The next player on the list is one that we've talked about plenty of times before, and more than likely will continue to do so. That is Jonathan David, but I don't think we have talked about this story. Now, it was reported by L'Equipe back on July 19th, so it's a little outdated, but there hasn't been a lot of speculation really right now, just that deals haven't really been happening for Jonathan David. But back on July 19th, L'Equipe did put out a report that Roma, which is no longer going to be in the race, Atletico Madrid have been interested in signing Jonathan David. And because Morata did finalize that move to AC Milan, Alvarez is, I think, right now an option for Atletico Madrid. I don't know what other options I've really seen. So Jonathan David could make sense as a player that comes in. Plus, Alex, Antoine Griezmann very recently is being linked to MLS with LAFC. So if he leaves as well, there could be a couple positions up top for Diego Simeone to invest in. Now, there's something about the Ottawa boy, Jonathan David, the Atletico group. Maybe it makes sense, maybe it doesn't. What do you think of this? And would you mind seeing him go to La Liga, joining up with Atletico Madrid?
Yeah, there's a lot of intrigue in that sort of move. Of course, you can, from the footballing standpoint, you can wonder, does this move end up being more of a Griezmann type move where he thrives, or even a guy like Morata has had some pretty great seasons for Atletico, or is this kind of like a Joao Felix, where this was a young attacker and just really never fit the system, wasn't really built for it? But I think it's something, if Jonathan David could be more of that Morata, Griezmann mold of forward that ends up doing well for Simeone, Diego Costa, another one of those names. I think there could be a lot to like with the move, in the sense that Atletico Madrid are a big club. They're constantly pushing in Champions League, pushing for trophies. You learn a lot about the defensive side of the game under a head coach like Simeone. Uh, I think David could potentially learn a lot. So there's definitely some intrigue in the move if he's willing to look outside the Premier League. It sounds like that potential move to West Ham broke down. Which is unfortunate, because there's a lot of intrigue with a club like that. You just wonder if Tottenham's ever going to make a concrete push, because there was rumors a while back that Richarlison might go to Saudi and that they really want a striker and they admire Jonathan David. I don't think that admiration is going to go away. So I think that's going to linger. And I remained a very strong supporter of Jonathan David going to Tottenham. But Atletico Madrid offers a bit of an intrigue when you mentioned some of those other.
Simeone and his style does worry me a little bit, but would make me be interested in this move is if Antoine Griezmann did leave, because his role would open up, and I think Jonathan David could do it. And they are actually recently linked to Alexander Sorolov. So considering they play in a two-striker system, you could have your big target man in Alexander Sorolov being your big number 9, and then you could have Jonathan David maybe playing a little bit under him, similar to Griezmann did, floating around. And I think that would really bring a lot out of Jonathan David. I think he could do that role well, instead of seeing him maybe come into Atletico Madrid and playing alongside Griezmann. I don't know exactly how that would look. Will it happen? We don't know, but that could definitely be one of the teams in the race. And then the third player we're going to touch on today is another striker. Now, this is a dual nat, so obviously interest from Canadian fans will be in there, and it's a dual national that you guys are very, very familiar with. It is Daniel Jebbison. Now, I know he just had a permanent move to Bournemouth right now, but there has been reports out there by Sean Webley that he could go out on loan. He's played in the preseason right now. He scored a penalty in a shootout against Arsenal. But I think it's very important at his age, and especially after this past season he had, that he needs minutes. So the report that was put out was that there's actually a couple of championship level clubs that are interested in Daniel Jebbison, Leeds United and Sunderland. Two teams I'd say are probably likely to push for promotion as well. I think it's a great idea for Jebbison to get a move to a team that he's going to play. I think that's the most important. And especially given that we haven't really seen him a lot, I don't really know exactly where he's at. I don't think he's at the level to really start or have an impact at the Premier League. I'm not even convinced that he could really do it at the championship level. But considering he did get the move to the Premier League, I would hope that he could find a club in the championship. So, Alex, would you like to see him stick it out in the Premier League, come off the bench, try to fight for minutes there, maybe wait till January, get a loan move now? And do you think the championship level is the right one for him?
I think championship would be good, because he had a very good stint in League One. I want to say it was. I think it was Burton a while ago. What a throwback that was.
It was.
And he did well there, then went to the championship and got some minutes for Sheffield United, but never really regular. Then, of course, some injuries, some health concerns. I think it would be nice. All right, you proved League One, do the championship, because it is still a big jump out to the Premier League, especially for a player who missed a year. I think if he not missed a year, it makes sense. And for what it's worth, the timeline is set up perfectly. Why I say Bournemouth has some pretty good strikers. I mean, Dominic Solanke had an incredible season last year. They've also signed Enes Unal, the Turkish striker who was playing at Getafe. They got Semenyo as well, who plays on the wing, but he can also play up front. They've got some options in attack. Can't imagine Solanke ends up staying there too long. I'd be surprised if he makes it through the summer, to be honest, but certainly feels like another big season he's gone. A move like this could allow Jebbison to go get reps in the championship, play regularly, get that form, get that fitness back, potentially score some goals. And if Bournemouth, ends up moving on Solanke, there could be a door open for Jebbison the next season to come in and really become a Premier League regular. So I'd like the timeline on a move like that. And the championship is a good level, as we've seen some Canadian strikers like Anika Ugbo is playing the championship. Of course, Liam Miller as well got the notice of the Canadian national team. I think it's something where the men's national team would look at a move like this and potentially try and swoop in and call him up. So it could be a win-win for all parties in this moment.
And Fabrizio Romano actually just put out a report that Solanke is being targeted by Spurs, Alex. So like he said, there's a very good chance that he doesn't remain at the club this summer. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens there with Jebbison. The next player, number 4 on our list, is Moise Bombito. Now, this is one where I'm very intrigued because there's a couple different reports going out there right now. Tom Bogart has been all over it. He's been linked to Lyon and now Salzburg as well. Now, we thought it was going to be cool to maybe see the 2 starting center backs for the Canadian men's national team move to a top 5 league in Liga, especially with 2 very big clubs in Lyon and, of course, Marseille. But maybe at his age and the fact that, he's playing in his first pro season right now with the Colorado Rapids, maybe that bridge move might make a little bit more sense to go over to Austria and play with Salzburg, get some experience there, and then take a step up. Out of those 2 clubs, or even maybe another club in Liga, is there one that really interests you for Bombito?
Yeah, I mean, I think Liga remains a fantastic option. I can't help but wonder, for example, one thing to watch in the whole Derek Cornelius saga is that Lille were targeting Derek Cornelius. They just Cornelius ends up going to Marseille. Lille just lost Lenny Yoro, who's more of a right-sided center back. Moise Bombito, a right-sided center back. Similar profiles in terms of height and speed. All I'm saying, there could be a very ready-made thing where if a Jonathan David leaves, Lille can continue to push to broadcast to a Canadian audience by bringing in a Moise Bombito. But yeah, I definitely feel like for Bombito at his age, the earlier you can get to Europe, the better, because he's 24. He's not old, but he's not young. And I think especially from what he's shown, it would be great if he could move to a European environment. And I think Ligue 1 would be a perfect landing spot. I like the Salzburg links just because that puts you in the Red Bull system. He's already familiar with it from Colorado and now Canada. That could potentially open the door to a Leipzig down the road, but also at the same time, for a defender going to the Austrian league, you might not be getting the same quality of attack. And again, that just might not help him right now in the near future. For him, he needs to get more reps at the top level because he has the skills to play at the top level. So I don't think he needs as much of a transition move. I think he needs to go to that top level or close to it, like a Ligue 1. So I would say if it's not Lyon, if they cool their interest, Lille's a one to watch, because if Yoro, since Yoro's gone, and if David leaves, plus they made Champions League, they'd get a lot of money for all that. And that's, again, with Liga and the financial situation they're in with the broadcast deal drama that happened, Lille could be set up to be willing to meet the evaluation, because Lyon wanted Bombito. They were willing to make the push, but Colorado asked for a club record fee, according to Bogart, upwards of $5 million. Maybe Lille might be willing to pay for it with some of the money they got this summer.
Very well said, Alex. I don't have much to add. I will say I agree with you 100%. And if Bombito was 20, I think I would change a little bit, because he's playing in a Red Bull style with Jesse Marsch, 20 years old. I think then that's perfect to get a year or 2 at Salzburg, really develop, and then go on. But because he's a bit of a late bloomer and he's 24, I do think he's good enough to find a club at some point throughout Ligue 1 to kind of focus in on, whether it's Lyon, whether it's a Lille, maybe it's another team a little further down the pecking order. We'll have to wait and see. But I do like that move, and I really do hope it happens, because I still want to be able to say the Canadian men's national team have 2 center backs in a top 5 league. And hopefully, we can keep an eye on Ligue 1, because it's a great league to watch. And I know a lot of Canadians have been following it over the years due to Jonathan David, and more Canadians keep going there. But the final player on our list today, Alex, player number 5, is Mathieu Choiniere. And this is the player that has basically said he wants a trade. We've talked about him a little bit before. I think a few clubs that might make sense is Ghent, Jonathan David's former club, Ligue 1 again, because that's just where we continue to circle back to. I don't know if I know you put a couple teams there, but I'll let you focus on maybe what fit would be a little bit better. And also, I'm going to throw MLS in there, because I do think there's a chance that it could be a trade. I'll throw the Columbus Crew in there. Link back up with Rufin Nancy. I think that can make a little bit of sense as well. And Morris moved on. So out of all those, what do you want to happen? Do you want to see him go to Europe? Do you want to see him maybe even stay at CF Montreal? What are you thinking?
Yeah, it's a unique situation because, again, it was reported by Tom Bogart that he'd requested a trade, But I mean, it sounds like it was through the agent, because Mathieu Choiniere has been very coy about much. Like, he's just kind of been like, let the I play, let those around me figure that out. And then I think it's really interesting that he's asked. He's like, look, my dream's to go play in Europe, and you do wonder if something like the trade request could also be, leading to other picture, right? Maybe he feels a trade is the best way to get to Europe long term by going to a different environment, or maybe the trade's the best way to negotiate a contract to then get sold to Europe, or who knows, right? But I did find those comments interesting, because again, he's at an age where it's now or never. He's 25. And if a team could be willing to take a punt on him, what I thought of immediately is Lens, because Lens are a bit of a moneyball team. They've made some smart signings, I think, immediately, of when they got Frankowski, who was a winger at Chicago Fire a few years ago, and they turned him into a top wingback. I can't help but wonder if a Choiniere could fit into that system that Lens like to play. I mean, they recently, of course, brought in head coach Will Still, which we know is a bit of an interesting hire. Maybe there could be a bit of a link up there. But Choiniere, there's some teams across the league that would be interesting. What would hurt him is just, counting as an international player, which could hurt his chances. But maybe that opens the door, kind of how like a Theo Bair went to an Auxerre. You do wonder if maybe a club like a Montpellier, Toulouse, Strasbourg recently just fired Patrick Vieira. Maybe there could be some opportunity for a Ligue 1 club. Maybe they've got a strong domestic quota of players they're willing to take a punt on a Choiniere, because yes, while he might count as an international, he won't be horrifically expensive with his contract situation, with everything. Maybe you get him for $1 million, $2 million. That ends up being a good bargain down the line. But that's also why Belgium makes sense, because the club there could also pay that. And for a guy like Choiniere, he can just get that move, and from there he's in more of a position to get a prove it deal in a league like that and see where it takes him.
Yeah, I mean, if he wants to put his money where his mouth is and he does want to go to Europe, there's a chance that he could be willing to play ball to make that, I'm sure that move happens. And the fact that he put in a pretty decent performance, I think a pretty impressive performance throughout Copa America, I think will only do good things for him. I don't know what it is with me right now, but I would say I just want to see him go to Liga. That just seems to be the league. I think Canadians are just going to find success.
If you want to develop, go to Liga. That's just the message. So you keep sending more of them there.
You should. I mean, and he is 25. His situation's a little bit different, but like you mentioned, there's a handful of teams that are probably mid-table that I think could use him, and I think it could really develop his game as well. So that's what I really like to see from Choiniere if he is looking to leave MLS. So those are the 5 players we focused on today. Let us know down in the comment section if you agree with the clubs that we talked about. If there's any other players you want to see get moves, maybe a Schaffelberg could be a big option, Ike Ugbo. Definitely let us know. And if you enjoyed this video, as always, be sure to drop a like, drop a sub. We'll see you guys soon. Cheers, friends.